Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Dr. Nobody podcast. I want to start off with saying thank you so much for all your support. With this episode, will be episode 14, I believe. 14 episodes, 14 weeks I've been doing this. It's incredible. It's been such a great ride. Stressful, most def, but thank you so much for your support. It's been a great experience so far, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the weeks coming up and beyond. I just want to give you some updates on the podcast. So this is not an official episode. This is just a quick, short update. I'm going to skip a week to prepare for the second half of the season, since there's a lot, and a lot of the episodes are long. So I'm trying to shorten them. But anyway, so first off, viewership, listeners, it's been great. I honestly, truly thought I would probably get no more, than 10 people listening to this podcast. Usually in 1 week, I get about 25 plus or minus 5 people on an episode. Some episodes are about to hit 100. That is so incredible for someone like me who has done zero marketing, zero advertising besides what I post on social media for this podcast. I've spent no money on it. I am undoubtedly grateful for you listeners for sharing the podcast and just getting that word out. That's what's growing this podcast. It's you helping me, you spreading the word. I appreciate it so very much. And just to be transparent again, I make no money off this podcast. I've made no money off this podcast. Everything that I've done, I've spent money on for the podcast myself, and I'm happy to do that. It's such a great experience, and what I've been getting back from listeners like you all, giving me feedback, telling me your testimonies, your experience, how happy you are, suggestions. It's been great, and I love it, and I really am thankful for it. For this episode, it's just going to be a very short episode. I'm just giving you updates because I needed to take a break. This is halfway through the season, and next week we're going to pick it up with mentorship. Now, the reason why I'm doing this update episode is because there's going to be a change in the podcast. Now, I am also analyzing the episodes, seeing the stats, what's going on, and I realized that the episodes that I publish of myself, so just me, no interviews, besides the 4 that I posted early on, have been doing very poorly, and that's fine. I'm totally not offended. I think people want to hear the interviews, and that's fine. I'm totally fine with that, and I'm going to go ahead and stop publishing the episodes of my own and focus on the interview so I can put more heart into them and more editing skills. Actually, it's been great editing. It's kind of fun. But anyway, yeah, so no more personal episodes. And don't worry, a lot of my episodes that I had created for myself are sprinkled into the interviews anyway. So some of the stories that I would tell are in those interviews with my guests. That's just for this season. If something changes in the later half of the season and people want them, then maybe season 2, I will be doing my own personal episodes. But just so you know, I have a Word document with no double space, 11-point font of just topics to talk about for this podcast. 16 pages. Okay. Plenty of material. I'm looking forward to it. So I won't be ending anytime soon. So yeah, so that's what's going to happen now. That's the only major change that's going to happen with the podcast. But we'll start back up with the importance of mentorship with Seth, a really good friend of mine from Canada. And yeah, that's it. That's really the major change that's happening on this podcast. But I just want to urge you all to continue sharing this podcast with others. I'm just going for that organic growth. I don't really feel the need to spend more money on marketing or advertising because I'm not in this for the money. I'm just in this to help you and support you. And I really appreciate people reaching out and telling me, how they feel about it. And talking about that, I'm starting to think about season 2, and I don't know when that would come out. This podcast took about 6 months to prepare to release. Now that was from scratch. I was creating the website. I was learning how to edit the interviews, blah blah. So it probably won't take that long to make season 2. But I'm starting to think about it. And listeners, if you're interested in being on the podcast, please email me at drnobodypodcast@gmail.com. Please message me on the social media feeds. Do DM me, whatever you like. Get a hold of me so that we can talk about it. And if you're interested, please reach out with your message. Please attach some background information and what topic you would like to cover. And then I usually have pre-interviews with everybody that gets on this podcast, and that's just to clear up what's going on with the podcast, what we're going to be talking about, and make sure the topic makes sense. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, everyone, for your support and tuning in every week. The podcast is growing. The community of nobodies is growing. So you are not an N of 1 or an N of 10 at this moment. You're more like an N of 100 plus. So thank you. I hope at this point in the season, though, you're already incorporating some of the things you have learned in your life or shared, because you definitely have shared, with someone who needed it. And that goes a long way. Sharing, not just sharing the podcast, but sharing the thoughts from the podcast to other people, because that means a lot to me too. It means that I'm not just spewing nonsense on this podcast. And I hope this is the beginning of becoming a someone, but specifically the someone you always wanted to be. But please do give me a like, review, and subscribe like you have. But let's just make sure we tell everybody else to do that as well. The numbers are okay. They're good for what this podcast is doing, but I want to get out there. I want to spread the news. I want to talk to people. I want people to learn more about Dr. Nobody and the Nobody community and yourselves. I want people that are looking in the podcast search algorithms or whatever it is and typing up career advice or self-improvement or something like that, and I'm popping up to help them. And I'm sure there's plenty of other podcasters that do way better job than I do, but hey, I have a different story. This is a more personal experience for me than being a motivational speaker, which I could probably do, but not my interest. So just remember to share the podcast, because here in the Dr. Nobody podcast, we turn nobodies to somebodies. Talk to you all very soon.